And I'm outraged, I'm sickened, and I'm saddened by the way Shedeur continues to be treated in the National Football League, now by those sorry-ass Browns and sorry-ass Kevin Stefanski.
I understand in a situation like that, when it comes to the 3s and 4 that you're playing with that aren't going to be on the squad and not going to make the team, give your quarterback a chance. Okay, you know what? You know they can't hold up that long? Let's play quick game. Let's play quick game just to get Shedeur in the goddamn rhythm. But no, you come out calling regular offensive plays.
When they're at practice, Shedeur Sanders is not their priority. When he is at practice, he was staying hours beforehand, leaving hours later.
Last night, Shedeur Sanders wasn't just playing a game. He was thrown into a setup. Nothing about it felt accidental. From the instant he took the field, it was obvious this was him battling more than the opposing team. It was him against the entire system. The Brown staff clearly believed they could silence the growing hype around him and put an end to his momentum. But their plan didn't go the way they expected. Instead, the move has drawn attention, with analysts and reporters now circling, ready to call out Stefanski and the Browns for orchestrating Sanders' downfall.
I'm going to answer this question by saying Shedeur Sanders, and I'm going to tell you why. I think he's being set up to fail.
Stephen A. Smith was the first to step in, claiming he had seen this preseason setup coming from the start. He argued that from Game 1 through the finale, every move was carefully crafted to make Shedeur Sanders stumble. Smith even went so far as to call Sanders starting the opener a deliberate trap designed to guarantee his failure. In his view, the intention was simple: prove Sanders was nothing more than a fifth-round pick and validate the critics who doubted him. While that may have been true before preseason began, things didn't stop there. Once again, Stefanski is under fire for throwing Sanders into an unfamiliar system, not to help him grow, but to ensure he struggled. Garrett Bush echoed that sentiment, stressing that regardless of the work Sanders put in before or after practice, he was never treated as a real priority in the Browns' plans.
When they're at practice, Shedeur Sanders is not their priority. When he is at practice, he was staying hours beforehand, leaving hours later.
Stefanski, however, refused to back down, doubling down on his claim that the team was performing fine and putting all the blame squarely on Shedeur for his struggles. When pressed about the fact that Sanders had been practicing almost exclusively with third- and fourth-string players all week, and whether that lack of chemistry factored into his mistakes, Stefanski didn't budge. Rather than admitting that Sanders might have benefited from first-team reps, he brushed it aside. His explanation was simple. As a coach, his priority was developing rookies. But is that really how you nurture a promising young talent? By denying him meaningful first-team practice, only to throw him into live action with plays he's never actually run?
I think with all of our players, Mary Kay, there's things that we can do better, and there's some good moments out there, but that's what our job as coaches, to develop our guys.
Skip Bayless also weighed in on the matter, blasting the Browns for the way they've handled Shedeur Sanders and labeling it the worst approach imaginable. He pointed out that this wasn't just an isolated incident, but part of a concerning pattern where Sanders has been consistently mismanaged by Stefanski and the organization. In Skip's view, it was obvious Sanders wasn't being provided the opportunities or backing necessary to thrive. Instead of helping him grow, the Browns' treatment only piled on added pressure, making his path to success even harder and raising more questions about the team's true intentions.
And I'm outraged, I'm sickened, and I'm saddened by the way Shedeur continues to be treated in the National Football League, now by those sorry-ass Browns and sorry-ass Kevin Stefanski.
Ocho Cinco also jumped into the discussion, arguing that by surrounding Shedeur Sanders with offensive players who weren't even expected to make the roster, Stefanski practically guaranteed his failure. Ocho emphasized that even a legend like Tom Brady would have struggled under those circumstances. The support just wasn't there. With that lineup, Sanders never had a fair chance. Analysts echoed this point, placing the blame squarely on the coaching staff for denying him the proper environment to succeed. Ocho also predicted that critics would soon twist the narrative, labeling Sanders a bust and writing him off as nothing more than a fifth-string quarterback. But he stressed that what people wouldn't acknowledge was the bigger issue. the fact that Sanders had been deliberately set up. Despite the growing backlash, Ocho insisted this was all part of a larger effort to drag him down. No matter the outcome, it's clear that some are more interested in tearing Sanders apart than recognizing the real circumstances that affected his play.
You just beat the guy. And that's okay. You get paid, he gets paid. Sometimes Ocho just gonna win because Ocho was just the better player. Sometimes the defensive back is gonna win. He wins some, you win more than you lose. Right.
Despite all the controversy swirling around him, Shedeur Sanders never once spoke out against his coach or the organization. Instead, he chose to shoulder the responsibility himself, owning up to his performance and focusing only on what he could control. Sanders openly acknowledged that there were plenty of areas where he needed to sharpen his game, but he stressed his determination to put in the work and improve. Rather than dwelling on the circumstances, his mindset was centered on progress, treating the experience as a lesson and an opportunity to grow into a stronger, more prepared quarterback.
No, I gotta watch the film, honestly. I can't say what it was. It's definitely different places where I could got my eyes in better spots and got to the progressions quicker and regardless of anything, so all those sacks, they definitely on me.
But how long can Shedeur Sanders keep carrying all the blame on his shoulders? How long before the people in charge finally step up and give him a fair chance instead of stacking the deck against him? More and more, it's becoming clear that what's happening feels like a calculated setup. Sanders may have survived the first round of challenges, but he's still stuck in a system that seems designed to hold him back. The bigger question is, when will the unfair treatment stop, and when will real opportunities begin? The way Sanders has been handled shines a harsh light on fairness, opportunity, and bias within the NFL. Despite obstacles being thrown in his path, Sanders has shown remarkable maturity, taking responsibility for his performance, admitting where he can improve, and staying committed to growth. But the larger issue isn't about him missing plays. It's about a system that continues to put young athletes, especially those who don't fit a certain mold, in positions where failure feels inevitable. What Shedeur is facing goes beyond his own journey. His story reflects the struggles of countless athletes who run into barriers outside of their control. The Browns' mishandling of him, placing him in unwinnable situations, points to deeper, systemic flaws within the sport. Analysts and commentators are calling it out, because at this point, the debate isn't just about football anymore. It's about breaking through bias and ensuring every player is given a real shot. Shedeur's resilience deserves respect, but the real issue remains. When will the system change? When will players like him finally be given the chance to succeed on their own merit? Now, we'd love to hear from you. Do you believe Shedeur Sanders is being treated fairly, or do you think there's a deeper problem here? And how long should athletes like him be expected to shoulder responsibility for circumstances they can't control? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear where you stand.
Your Honor, I am entitled to emotional compensation for being deliberately excluded from a neighborhood celebration that directly affected my reputation as HOA president. Those were the actual words that came out of Patricia Summers' mouth in court. She stood there in a pastel blue blazer with an oversized HOA pin glinting under the lights like she thought she was some kind of official dignitary. The judge slowly pulled off his glasses, massaged his forehead, and looked at her with something between disbelief and exhaustion. "You're suing your neighbor? Because he didn't invite you to his wedding?" he asked. Patricia, clutching a massive 3-ring binder labeled social violations and community harm records, nodded with complete seriousness. I sat in the back row with my new wife Emily, both of us biting our lips to keep from laughing out loud. The judge actually chuckled himself before shaking his head. "Ma'am," he said, "this is not a legal matter. This is a misuse of the court's time. Honestly, this is the most ridiculous filing I've seen in 3 decades. So let me rewind and explain how I even ended up here, being dragged into small claims court by my HOA president over something as absurd as a wedding invitation. My name is Daniel Morrison. I'm 32 and I work in software development. About a year and a half ago, I made the mistake of buying a house in Riverside Gardens, a suburban neighborhood where Patricia reigned as HOA president. And make no mistake, she didn't just serve as president, she treated it like she was running a mini kingdom. This woman once issued a $300 fine to a neighbor because their trash can sat at the curb for 6 minutes longer than allowed. Every Sunday morning, she was out with a ruler, measuring lawn height like it was a military inspection. She had her own bizarre violation system with color codes and points that no one could make. Offensive, but everyone feared. I'd been living there quietly, keeping my head down, doing everything by the book to avoid Patricia's wrath. Around that time, I met Emily at a local cafe where she worked as a vet tech. A year later, I proposed, and we planned a small backyard wedding. About 40 guests, just family and close friends. Not once did it cross my mind to invite Patricia, the woman who once accused me of ruining neighborhood aesthetics because my car's window tint was 2% darker than HOA rules. The wedding was everything we wanted. String lights in the yard, a small tent, Emily's cousin playing acoustic guitar, music wrapped up by 10 p.m. sharp in compliance with the HOA noise rules. I even filed the required event notice with the HOA 2 weeks in advance since it was more than 20 people. I thought I'd covered everything. What I hadn't considered was Patricia's ego. The very next day, I came home to find a violation taped to my door. It accused me of unauthorized event execution and failure to include HOA leadership in community bonding. Along with it, a $500 fine. At first, I laughed, but then the emails started. 12 of them in 3 days, each one angrier than the last. According to Patricia, the HOA president had the right to be present at all major social gatherings to enforce standards and ensure compliance. She even claimed my decision not to invite her had caused her social exclusion trauma. I ignored the emails and formally contested the fine, assuming that would settle things. Nope, Patricia doubled down. She called an emergency HOA meeting and tried to pass a rule that would require all residents to invite board members to private events. When that failed, she went into full petty war mode. Suddenly, I was getting dinged for every ridiculous thing she could invent. My mailbox was supposedly an inch too far to the left. A tiny oil stain in my driveway violated neighborhood cleanliness. Even my doorbell chime was deemed disruptive to the acoustic harmony of the street. The breaking point came when Patricia filed an actual small claims lawsuit against me. She demanded $3,000 for emotional distress